Okay, so I have a confession to make. I don't remotely like the RF mount. And I guess that's because I still shoot with EF glass, but the main reason is because I don't like using adapters. Until I got this one. Simmod makes an RF to FD adapter and it's an absolute beast. I originally wanted to purchase this because I have these old Canon FD lenses that I've been shooting photos with for years, but every time I tried adapting them to different cameras for video, it was a consistent letdown. Any adapter I've tried in the past introduced random focus issues or added extra glass, making for unsharp images, and ever since then, I just kind of gave up on trying to adapt them. But I recently got the itch to try to adapt these lenses once again after watching things like Euphoria and hearing that people were actually rehousing old Canon FD lenses.
The Canon Dream lenses are these lenses built in the 60s by this Japanese lens maker, worked for Canon. So commercially, I think they produced 20,000 lenses in the 60s total. I don't know how many survive. But the guys at Zero Optic, they took the Dream lenses completely apart and rehoused them so they could be cinema lenses.
So I gave it one more try, and this time I finally had success thanks to Simmod. They really nailed it with this thing. So once I finally was able to adapt the Canon FDs, I instantly wanted to compare them to what their counterparts would look like nowadays, to see how their unique qualities actually stand out. Okay, first up, let's start off with the 70-200 matchup. Okay, so I tried to set up the exact same shots for all of these, but I did bump the tripod a few times. But all the camera settings and lens settings are the same. I wanted the sharpness outcome to be pretty comparable, so I stopped down around f4 for all the comparison shots. And as well, the exact same color correction is applied to each comparison shot. Next up is the 50mm, and this one's pretty interesting because this specific one is really easy to come by on the cheap, but there is models that can get really expensive. Okay, so what should you be paying attention to when watching these comparison shots? Pay attention to the warmth or hue shift on the FD lenses, the way the highlights bloom more on the FD lenses too. If you look where the text is on the boat here, you can see what I mean. If you pay attention to the edges of objects, specifically for the FD, there's a little bit more fringing and aberrations on the edges of things. This shot is a good example of the FDs rendering everything just slightly a little bit warmer. Just a quick sharpness test here, and even at 500%, the FDs hold up no problem. And the last lens, and probably my favorite one, is the 28mm. Another thing that I noticed with pretty much the entire FD set was that the field of view was slightly different than modern glass. Not by much, but it was noticeable. So the 28 didn't quite match up at 28 on the Sigma, and the 50 didn't quite match up with the 50, and same thing with the 70-200. They all seemed like they were a little bit wider. But I think it just adds a little bit more uniqueness compared to what we're used to seeing. In this shot here, pay attention to how each lens reproduces the highlights in these big bright lights. Overall, I'm really stoked that I picked up this adapter because my Canon FD lenses have been sitting on the shelf for quite some time, and I'm really excited to introduce them to my video workflow. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.